It sometimes pays to listen to the teacher, and it's good to know, like also the goals, because the goal could be specific tasks that you want to accomplish in the language, and goals could also be specific time, like maybe like you want to go back to Tanzania, maybe for an internship or for a summer. So it could also be time. So it could be whatever you have in your mind, in as far as what you want to achieve.
Expound like this, those who are listening.
Okay.
When you expound like this, that gives more insight and makes the question less intimidating. And so I appreciate that. Appreciate that. What's your answer? What's your goal?
My goal. So honestly, like it depends on how committed, like in general, it depends on how committed that person is to learning the language. So for me, I definitely say, I wouldn't say like an exact time, but it like what I was saying, it just depends on the person, how committed they are to the process of learning the language. So it can really, like, the time just differs. The time differs for whoever. But yeah, I'll give myself maybe a few months. Yeah.
Okay. All right. That's good enough, because there's someone I'm talking to. Their goal is to be able to have a conversation with a grandma, and that to me is a very noble goal, because they love each other. But when they're seated together, they can't communicate, because like with people who the grandma is cannot read or write, so you cannot use those apps that people are using right now for
there's
for
no
language
app for
learning.
that.
For language learning. So that's an interesting thing. And I think like also teachers also need to be very honest with students when it comes to language learning, because one thing I've not liked within the American system of learning languages, especially in colleges, the goal is never to give you competency to speak, because you'll get people who will tell you, oh, I did 4 years of Spanish in high school, but they can barely express themselves, or like when they're with a Spanish person. So you wonder, what exactly were you doing for these 4 years if you cannot just have a simple conversation? And it's the same with college. There are these requirements that you're supposed to have for a foreign language. So, and even the way, like it's taught, it's just different. I did sit in a class in college here, where I had, like learned some French in Kenya. And when I took, like a French class, in an American college, I was really surprised and really shocked, at how it was being taught, because it was being taught in English. And the French that I had started learning, I did a bit of it in high school. I did go to Alliance Francaise, like in Kenya. And the last time I remember, like the teacher speaking English was the first day that we met. And that's the last time, and they keep building up, and that's how you build language skills. This thing of learning in English, which is what I think in the American context people know, it's not gonna work. If your goal is to go back, speak to your grandmother, interact socially with people, have conversations, when it comes to language, that's not gonna work. You have to put yourself in uncomfortable positions. You have to put yourself in a position where you're like a toddler, like you're talking about, where you don't care that you're making mistakes, where you're out learning. Like every time, if you don't feel that discomfort when you're learning a language, you're constantly feeling comfortable, but when you're thrown into the deep end, you can't speak, then that means there's something wrong that you're doing. So I think sometimes it's also good to give this reality check. And
something I want to say as well is that what I really liked for like the past 2 years, my sophomore year in high school, I learned Spanish from a white man, but it's not. It's
all of my teachers were white too.
Exactly, but what I really loved was that my junior year, I learned Spanish from a Mexican man. I learned from a native man of the culture, the language. So he really did challenge us and allow us to understand his perspective. Like he really wanted us, like his goal was for us to be able to at least, say a sentence, because something that we did like towards the end of like each quarter was like write an essay. Like write an essay in Spanish. Like you couldn't use like Google Translate or like Spanish dictionary or like
Chat GPT.
Now there's Google Bird.
Exactly. There's so many of these things. But he really challenged us, and wanted us to understand his culture. Like he gave us, like it opened our eyes to understand his culture by him being a native man and sitting in front of that classroom teaching us every day. So I really did love that, and I definitely got better at Spanish. But tracking back, talking about like my goal for Swahili, I definitely like want to have a conversation like in a few months time. Like a few months time, conversations ideal. Like,
okay, all right,
That's great.
all right. So that's good. Thank you so much, and we really appreciate your contribution. Now,
Same time.
Yeah, same time next week.
Next week.
Okay,
With
Definitely.
more on sports. So what's your sign out? How do you sign out? And no. How do you sign out? If you're doing a sports segment, if you've been given the whatever, how do you say?
I appreciate the opportunity. It's Namaruta, and I'm out for now.
okay.
Okay.
All right.
We'll work on that.
That's the start. That's the start.
Yeah.
That's the